Freedom Fighters, I'm coming back at you with another Friday weekly wrap up. Well, I kind of had another topic planned for today's video, but I'm just going to push that back maybe till Monday's rant. But if you're new here, I usually do a Monday Friday show, and Monday being kind of a, off kilter topic or something, and Friday I usually do weekly wrap ups. Sometimes I switch that up. But anyway, man, I think I was going to talk about Nick Fuentes today. Um, Nick Fuentes was the talk of the town. And I mean, everybody and anybody who's somebody was talking about Nick Fuentes this weekend. And I mean, like, literally every, podcaster or political person in that sphere, was talking about him. And he's got a lot of, drama surrounding him. And, I'll get to that later. But I guess if you don't know who he is, I'll give you a little short story run up on him or whatnot. But, whether you like him or not, he's one of those guys kind of like Trump. Like, whether you're a Trumpian or not, you're a supporter or a hater, you have to admit that Trump is the biggest, force in recent modern history in the political sphere. He had the enormous backing of the grassroots supporters, and it brought a lot of energy to the space. Definitely a lot of energy to what was a dead, dying Republican Party. And again, whether you like his attitude or his monikers or his tweets or what he says or his policies or anything like that, you have to admit the man brought something to the table, if at least in that form, right? So Nick Fuentes is that guy. He's the one bringing it to the table. He's bringing the message that's maybe something different that not everyone has heard, a different angle or a different side of the story that is being picked up, which a lot of people have said. I mean, it's nothing new, but people have kind of shied away from that because of the way the world has been, the debanking, the censorship, and everyone getting kicked out of basically anything if you spout those ideas, which we talked a little bit about this before. I did videos called I think it was The Winning Right, which was talking about I believe that video is about like controlled opposition, right-wing figures and stuff like that. And then I did a video about the civil war within the right, and it was America First versus MAGA, and there was those tensions there where I don't think Nick was supportive of the president this time around. Um, Me and him align on that side, where in 2016 we were both the biggest supporters there were, right? We were knocking on doors, we were telling all our friends and family, we were starting conversations in public, talking to people we know, online, trying to recruit people and get them into the movement because we saw, something different, and that avenue what we wanted. And I'm probably going to get into this again, but I mean, they saw the writing on the wall. We weren't going to vote for another, Jeb Bush was in there, another establishment, candidate. Um, and that's kind of how Nick was born. So again, I was going to touch a little on his backstory. Another voice you have probably heard of is Charlie Kirk. We call him Charlie Cuck around here because he is the born and bred, groomed establishment conservative they want you to follow. He is the example of what they want you to be. And Nick has told his story multiple times where he was like, he was in that space. Um, he was in what they call, the pipeline, basically the high school, debate club and the political sphere, going into college, and joining the pipeline of the young thinkers, conservative think tanks, and getting small, opinion articles in the newspaper, getting your feet wet in the political sphere. And then grooming you up into, like, you're gonna get the Fox News positions one day, you're gonna get your spot at a newspaper or in radio, or wherever you want to be. And he talked about getting paired up with some grifting girl. I don't even know her name, I can't even remember. She's pretty much irrelevant now. But he was paired up with her, and she was kind of showing him the ropes and stuff like that. And he was asking questions about um, the certain little country in the Middle East, and other anti-war positions, and stuff that the conservative movement was like, oh, that's not really where we're headed, that's not what we're talking about. um, and he seemed to be debating with them more than he was with the liberals, who had obvious, there's the obvious points and stuff against them, but he was like, you guys seem to shy away from this stuff. And if it's not wrong, well, why can't you at least, answer me or give me an answer, or let's have this debate. And she was like, no, you can't. You can't ask those questions. Next thing he knows, he's getting text messages. You're off the team. We're not people can't associate with you. He was getting friends text messaging him like, oh man, like we've been told, we can't associate with you and stuff. And Charlie Kirk and him were going head to head, and they picked their poster boy, right? They picked their establishment safe candidate in Charlie Kirk, and they said, you're going to lead the movement. You're going to be the face of conservatism. You're going to be on the college campuses. You're going to be the guy we pick. You're going to be on Fox News. You're going to get the sponsorships and the deals and the contracts. You can write the book deals. You can do it all. And he did this message the other day, or well, this tweet response where a guy called into his show, and people have been you know at turning point events and calling into his show for a long time and asking him, always hounding him, like, why isn't Nick Fuentes here? Why isn't he allowed into CPAC? Why isn't he allowed into these things? And Charlie just, goes red faced and starts twitching and gets all nervous, and he's like tapping on the desk, and, he's like, oh, and he's like, basically like, oh no, I don't platform trolls. And this is the thing, like, they just try to write him off as like he's just trolling, right? He's just a joke. He doesn't actually, mean this stuff, or he's not a good faith actor in this. He's just, doing this for, whatever purposes. And that's how they try to push him off. And they've done this time and time again. Tucker, which I had a big spout out with him, and this is kind of what got them all riled up and got people in the conversation. Was Tucker was going after him, saying he's a Fed, or what, that's what everyone seems to call each other these days. We're all Feds. And Nick clapped back, was like, your dad's the one who was in the CIA. And then he put out this lie where he was like, oh, I didn't even know my dad was CIA till he passed away like last year. And then he was like, he brought up not pictures, a film of like his Sean Ryan interview and previous interviews in the past, a year ago, some of them even further back than that, where he's like, oh yeah, the people I grew up in, Silicon Valley, California, and I believe he's either San Diego or San Francisco. And he's like, yeah, we knew a lot of intelligence people and stuff like that, but we didn't, really know like what they were. And then he found out like, oh yeah, my dad, was in that world. And he likes to, dance around it and say like, oh, he was, working with or people like that. And I forget the name of the foundation, but, um, he was in it. And Andrew Tate recently came out and did a podcast with Nick too, where his dad was CIA, and he also has a small hat handler that's running his program. So again, it brings light to a lot of these people that the right look after. And then the other clip they showed at Tucker was of him saying almost verbatim what he accused Nick of about Pat Buchanan, that oh, he's just some fringe lunatic conspiracy theorist and anti-Semite and racist bigot and blah blah blah, this and that, and writes them off. And then during Pat Buchanan's presidential run, Donald Trump was also there saying the exact same thing. So isn't it funny how we have Tucker and Trump talking about the same things now, and shunning and shutting down the future of America, the up and coming generation, and where we're going. It's Tucker and Trump in the position saying the same things they were saying against Pat Buchanan, against America First, supporters, his fan base, and Nick Fuentes himself. And they're trying to shut it down. And again, they're trying to go towards the establishment. And this is, like I mentioned before in that video of the winning right and videos we've talked about before. The right has always been controlled opposition. They don't actually, they do this to ensure that you never actually take power. And yeah, they'll bring in the candidate that sounds good and doesn't talk like Jeb Bush and sounds patriotic and, puts his fist in the air and yells and cusses and, gives you um, the fiery speeches and fills out arenas and waves American flags and makes you feel like, yeah, that Americana's coming back, the Patriots, are back in office, all that. But it's meant to sound that way. And, we're headed here now where Donald Trump has had 2 golden terms, right? And the both in the front half of both of his terms, the first 2 years he's had both the House and Senate and Supreme Court, and nothing comes of it. Now ask your questions why nothing ever comes of it. And of course, MAGA and people who are still riding Trump's coattails are going to tell you it's the rhinos. The rhinos are obstructing. The people they can't get the votes in the House, or they can't get the votes in the Senate, which is partially true. But even Trump himself is the one putting forth some of these rhino policies. And some of these, I mean, the big beautiful bill was nothing different that any other establishment, Republican candidate wouldn't have put out, before him. And then Boomer, Fox News will tell you all the same thing. They'll nod their heads and tell you promises made, promises kept, right? And that everything's golden, and you can retire and pass away in peace with your last year, your last year on Earth. But what they ain't telling you is about what your children are about to live through and your grandchildren are going to have to live through. And that's what we're talking about here in the future. The future of America and where we're going, where we're headed. And I mean, like I said, everyone was talking about it. I saw PBD who said, he'd never have them on, and he didn't want to platform them and he didn't want to talk about them. Was like, man, this guy's bringing receipts, and he's hosting 40,000, 50,000 people live streams every week. Megyn Kelly was talking about him, Lionel, Gerald Celente, um, and everybody on X. And I mean, like I said, the talk of the town was about him and how he's going up against the big dogs, right? Tucker, Trump, Elon, essentially the whole right is pushing him away and pushing away his followers. And, they don't want any opposition because they're getting ready for an election coming up. And that's what it is. Tucker might be running. I didn't even get into Candace. But yeah, she's attacking and all that. And kind of running out of time here, but I'll go further into this whole argument or this whole list of grifters and basically usurpers, plants and feds and CIA within the movement, and how they try to destroy the right and lead us astray. But anyway, man, till the next one, let me know what you guys think. And you know what it is, man. We are on our own. Nobody's coming to save us. So get right with God, because only God can save you. Freedom fighters out.